Can everybody raise their hand if you can recall the last time you were fierce at somebody? Who was it? Your good-for-nothing brother or a crazy aunt? Or was it somebody who you barely even knew? My experience was pretty recent. I was on Twitter, where a big corner of this platform is devoted to angry users from all parts of the world who get very mad at each other. Whether set on the backdrop of a specific political discourse or about the horrific New Zealand Christchurch shooting. There seems to be a never-ending supply of issues to get heated about. This type of interaction does not only translate in the digital world, but in the real world as well. Rumors accumulate, and before you know it, you're up in arms, picking a side. I used to do that too, because I thought it showed that I cared. Whether on Twitter or on campus, my active participation and public contribution showed that I was being an engaged citizen, caring about what was going on in my community. But if Twitter's job was to diversify the spectrum of opinions and ideas on a global scale, it was only serving to solidify mine. Seeing other sides of the argument only angered me, as I unconsciously put up a self-defense mechanism, unable to open myself up. I started to look at only specific parts of social media and specific news platforms that aligned with my views. I knew this wasn't right, but it was frustrating, and it was almost cancerous to get mad at what another person behind the screen had said. And I desperately wanted to change my way of interacting in public discourse. I have been in the school's newspaper program for 4 years now. And for the first 2 years, I was a writer, which meant that I was running around conducting various interviews for my sources. 3 sources per article, 2 articles a month, and for 2 school years, it adds up. I found myself constantly running around, talking to various members of my community, to teachers who I've never spoken to before, and to community members and parents who I'll never talk to again, but really have their number. It was a lot, but there was an innate characteristic in these conversations where strangers were willing to open up and talk about things that mattered. There was something about talking to others in a face-to-face and respectable manner that promoted a sense of authenticity, where bouncing back different ideas didn't seem as cancerous as Twitter. It seemed like I was genuinely learning and thus growing. It felt exciting to talk about things that mattered with other people, even when their views opposed mine. This became an inspiration to a personal podcast project where I would create the opportunity to have discussions and inspire listeners, to serve as an example, to have conversations with marginalized people in my community, and to develop their habit of learning to holistically respect people, regardless of their ideas. For my first episode, I went down to a homeless shelter in Wilmington, where I had the privilege of talking to people of homelessness and listen to their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. I specifically remember one interaction with a man named John. The twitches in his movements, the way his eyes wandered around the room, and the way he fidgeted with his fingers were all part of the holistic experience that made his impression so memorable and profound. Whereas a profile picture on Twitter doesn't provide that same type of characterization and humanity. It humanized him, where before I wasn't able to see the member of the homeless community that way. For my second episode, I went to talk to a student who felt marginalized by her political affiliation, where certain parts of the classroom made her feel targeted and degraded because of her specific political leaning. Talking to the student allowed me to understand the power of my words and the platform I am given inside the classroom. Through these endeavors, I challenged perspectives and reached middle grounds. I even had the opportunity to have positive interactions with busing baristas, angry customer service employees, vegans, and more. I was able to try and see their side. I had to learn to respect others' conflicting ideas and think critically and carefully before saying the words, "I think you're wrong." And when I did say that, I had to understand the discussions were a part of a 2-person effort. It didn't end once I finished all I had to say. I had to learn to thoroughly listen and challenge ideas in a respectful demeanor. It took a lot of patience, but I'm grateful for this learning opportunity. I don't mean to say that I think you guys all should go make a podcast, but I believe that especially in our current intense social and political climate, we all need to be a little more aware of the importance of having effective discourse. Some may believe that by what is currently happening in society, that it is a lost cause. But I disagree. I don't think that my endeavors were a naive attempt to stitch together a problem that has been affecting us negatively for so long. Because all of the people that I've interviewed were so willing to talk to me. The people at the homeless shelter had lines lined up to come tell me their story. And the community members were more than cooperative and respectful. I believe that there are others who you may not necessarily agree with who are up for cooperative dialogue. I just think that we just all need to be open to that idea. So when we see that new political scandal or that new social injustice popping up in our feeds, I believe that we should all learn to approach it by reading conflicting commentary and reading other news outlets and even approaching others in person about the matter. Looking back at my time spent, it patchworked a critical understanding of my community, allowing me to grow in ways I couldn't inside the classroom, deepening my relationship of what it meant to be an active civilian, a journalist, and a student outside the classroom. Not just a conveyor of truths, but a catalyst for the way we approach moral quandaries and controversies. It helped me understand what I am grounded in and what I don't want to be enlisted in. And in the end, it helped me understand the world through my perspective and identity. And I think it can help you too. Thank you.